Welcome to the Daily Edge. Jake Nudelberg, Marc Nudelberg, the Nudelberg brothers. We are going to roast Dabo Swinney and talk about leadership.
It's going to be a fun one.
Let's find our edge. Let's find our edge. That always starts with our affirmation. I set high standards for myself, not to avoid criticism, to earn respect. I lead by owning my part, even when the stakes are high. Let's just talk about it. Clemson has massively underperformed in the beginning of this year, and Dabo Swinney's running scared.
At this point, if you do not follow college football, Clemson is 1-2 now. I could not tell you the last time they had 2 losses, but it is not any time recently. They are coming out of a bye week this week, but after last game, they lose to they lose to Syracuse. And Dabo Swinney puts on an absolute performance.
A debacle.
During the week, starts with his Monday press conference, ends with his, post-game conference. I think to say it was all bad would be silly of us.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of bad.
There's a lot
to what
bad.
he said, to the lack of ownership, and to ultimately the identity of the program going forward. So I'm excited to dive in.
So we're not going to assume that everybody's a football fan. If you don't know who Dabo Swinney is, he's the head coach of the Clemson Tigers. They've had a massive amount of success over the last decade. 8 out of the last 10 ACC championships, which is, sort of difficult to do. I don't know if I'm being honest.
If you're a Miami fan, it's very difficult to do.
But he's had a lot of success. He's won national championships. They won it in 2019. They were in it in 2020.
He is the 1% of coaching. He is looked at that way. He is respected as that way. But the way he is handling himself almost feels like the game is passing him by.
So here's some quotes, right? So they're not having success this year, which is very frustrating for any leader. Whenever you've had success and all of a sudden you stumble, for any person, right? It's really hard to deal with.
Can we back it up for one second? So for those of you who do not follow college football has gone through an absolute overhaul in the last 5 years. If you haven't been following the NIL, they're paying players.
Transfer portals.
You can freely transfer to any college now. So the rules have changed. The game has changed. There has been a small audience of coaches who has been pretty outspoken about the changes, some positive, some negative. But the ones that have been successful, I'll call out Ryan Day, is just playing by the new rules and understands what it takes to win. And I know we were raised on a saying, this is the business we chose. And the things that come with being a football coach are a lot more now. You're asked to fundraise. You're asked to constantly be catering to your players and making sure that they're happy so they don't leave. You have to also have a pulse on other people's players in order to go get them. And now it almost feels, and I said it earlier, but it feels like the game is passing him by. And he believed, and this was 5 years ago, he said, I do not need to follow that. I don't need to go to the transfer portal. I don't need to pay players.
We're going to do it our way.
We're going to do it our way.
We're going to do it the Clemson
and now
way.
It's not working, and he looks a little bit clownish. And so we're going to dive into it. We're going to hear what he says, but it's not a good look.
All right, so straight away, right, he comes out of the loss against Georgia Tech and is like, if Clemson's tired of winning, they can send me on my way because that's all we've done is winning. First of all, bro, the job is to win now. It doesn't matter how many times you've won in the last decade. It doesn't matter how much success you've had. Any performance job, any sales role, any leadership in a company, it's not like, hey guys, we grew the company by 10% last year. Great job. This year, we're just doesn't really matter what happens. Doesn't matter if we underperform.
So I think it's so funny. I was just having this conversation with somebody, and there is a standards problem, right? You talked about it in our huddle the other week, the minimal viable performance, and you're either, compelled, complied, or,
whatever. However you look at it, right? There's levels of performance.
But what I laugh about, and especially in that sport where they're getting compensated to perform, everybody is now. It's not. There's no more that like players aren't getting paid, coaches aren't. Look, you're at Clemson. They've given you the resources. I know for a fact they have.
They're paying the quarterback what, $2 million, $4 million?
I'm sure Cade's getting forward.
Right?
You know, right. I think he's the best player, and if you don't perform, you don't achieve. But the problem is he's talking about the standard is the problem. The standard, like, why are we being right?
So here's why are we held to a different standard than all these other teams out there who ain't never won nothing? Bro, what? You are held to a standard because you are the standard of excellence. You are expected to win championships. You are expected to dominate physically. You are expected to make playoffs. And if you don't like that, go to one of them other programs that doesn't have that expectation.
It doesn't matter. Go to I'm going to say it. Go to North Carolina. I don't know.
Yeah, nobody
right. Nobody really cares that he sucks. They paid $10 million, and Bill Belichick is getting his ass kicked week in and week out. Nobody's really cares.
Nobody's saying a word about it, bro.
Listen, you did this to yourself too. Let's back up to 2020. You have a responsibility to, as a coach who is voting, you put Ohio State at 11 in 2020 to tell you they go on to win the national title.
Right.
In 2020, we're probably the best team, right? And you consistently put yourself into controversy about where the sport is going, what your belief system is, and get on this high horse consistently and almost bash the other players and the other coaches that are abiding by this new system and are trying to win in it. And instead of you doing your job as the head coach, you just complained.
Right.
You just complained and, well, this is that and we're not going to do that. And that's fine. You have every right to lead the way you want to. But in terms of the standard, what I don't understand is when you raise the standard, you don't get to lower it.
Right. That's it. That is the new standard.
Like, look at the Eagles. Like, their standard is to win a Super Bowl. If they stink on any given Sunday, it's not okay. Right? And that goes for every individual performance. Like, if your quarterback or your top salesman or your top whatever it is, does something, that becomes the expectation. And to say that I'm not going to do that regularly or not be expected to achieve that is silly.
I'll tell you, there's a lot of salespeople who struggle with this, who you do well, you have success, and then the very next year, your quota raises to meet that success again. And that is the reality of performance. And if you do not like that, get out of performance roles. There's plenty of roles where you can just show up and do the minimum that's expected and survive.
Like, thank God, that's why we have a business. But there are a lot of, high-performing organizations that don't run like a high-performing organization. And that's okay. They still have some success, but you're not going to be the best. Like, raising the standard consistently, the 1% better mentality has to exist. Like, look at Alabama. They lost one game and everybody lost their mind.
Right.
Right. And you don't hear the head coach on Monday going, well, I don't know why the standard is so high here.
Right. I don't know what.
I got hired to meet that standard. That's your job. And to run from it is insulting. And then another thing I want to talk about is you can't be that emotional. Like, I understand, and this is going to his post-game conference where he's like distraught. And we kind of talked about it pre-show, but like, I don't think that's your job as the leader of 20-year-olds is to be distraught.
No.
Is to be like reserved after being so commotional on Monday and being like, they played hard and nobody's dead. Like,
I think we've talked about this before on the show,
it, yeah.
right?
And we argue.
We're not expecting you to not be emotional,
anything, yes.
right? To not have any emotion, right? That's not the expectation. It's to not have any emotion. But it is your responsibility as a leader to manage your emotions, to take responsibility, and to hold the standard. Period. End of story. Full stop. You, as the head coach of Clemson, have 3 responsibilities: manage your emotions, take responsibility, and hold the standard. And in my book, you're 0 for 3, big dog.
Right. Well,
0 for 3.
Back it up. They lose to LSU, and his first comment is, "Well, they must have graded out a 64%, and we graded out a 56%." Where is your ownership in that?
Right.
Where is your where's that 8%
plays
that you lost?
were there, he didn't make plays. He's talking about the quarterback.
And I understand that. Like, we're football coaches. You rely on other people, and as leaders, you're going to rely on other people. And to say that they're not going to reach the expectation and every time is your fault is silly. That's an impractical thing to say. But when you stand up there and you go, well, I didn't coach him, or you don't say this. You go, you stand up there and you make excuses and say he didn't execute or he didn't make the right read. Isn't it your job to coach him?
Right. It's your responsibility that didn't happen. Right. It may not be your fault, right? We talk about this all the time. It might not be your fault. It's still your responsibility as a leader. And as a leader, you got to take responsibility for it. You don't get up there and go, oh yeah, he didn't do what he was supposed to do, and I got to get him to do that. You say, we did not operate to the standard that I have to hold us to. I got to prepare us better.
Us and the coaches.
I got to get us. I got to get them to do that, or I got to find the guys that will do that. There's plenty of ways for you to be able to communicate accountability and responsibility at the same time. But he's not.
The guy who beat him is Fran Brown, right? Did I get the name? And if
Fran Smith? Fran Brown.
I think it's Fran Brown, right?
Fran Brown. Fran's crushing it.
Go watch that guy.
Fran's crushing it.
Go watch that guy. They struggle against UConn, and he's gassing his players. If you don't know what gassers are, he's sprinting them in the Syracuse Dome in college football.
Right after the game.
Right after
the game. Accountability immediately.
We will not tolerate that, right? And so it feels like there is cracks in this Clemson system, and the identity of the team is almost gone. They were always, I feel like, the hardest workers and, very lunch pail kind of people.
I still think they're pretty tough. I just think they're getting out executed now, which I think might have to do with their belief in their leader. I do think that this is all this, the past 5 years of him being out in front and him making it about himself a little bit. And, this is the way we're going to do it here at Clemson. And this is how I'm not going to change. And all right, bro, where are you at now? Now that things aren't going so well, where's all that? This is our way, and we're going to do it. Where's all that now? Right. I don't see it.
Right. And we went, if you go back and watch our Dan Hurley episode, that was kind of my whole thing, was that this is yours, right? And good or bad, and I understand the players, and I understand because we worked in college and what it takes and all that, and it's hard. But, this was your year. You have all the pieces. It's not like you don't have it. And I know that it's a tough profession where you lost twice on the last play of the game and then got exploded. Oh, I'm sorry. They have 3 losses.
Correct.
Ha!
Correct. They're 1-3. They lost to starting the season to LSU, then they lost to Georgia Tech, and then they lost to Syracuse.
I forget
they're statistically eliminated right now.
Oh, wow. This is even worse.
And you still got Florida State coming. You still got Miami coming. So,
Jeez, I just realized that. Look, it's a tough profession, but you get paid to do the job, and you keep running. This is what I like. It seems like you don't understand what requires now. That's my problem.
So let's just ask the other side. Well, let's ask the other side of the question. Is it unfair to expect people to reach the max, to be the very best every year? Is it unreasonable?
Yes.
To hold people to a standard of without being able to ever have a down year? Yeah, it's unreasonable, right?
Yeah. Not when you make $9 million. It's,
right.
The rules, look, if you're...
This is the business we chose.
What are your expectations for people, right? If UNC's expectation was for Bill Belichick to win this year, they're going to set themselves up for failure, right? Yep. The expectations are the expectations, and you have to have agreement from everybody in an organization on expectations. And I would be hard-pressed that he didn't walk into the AD's office and said, we are competing for a national title this year, and that is our expectation.
Right.
That's if you said anything else, I would be very, very, very surprised at everybody and the amount of money that has been given. So, as the leader, you set the expectation, no?
And so, okay, great. Our expectation is that we're battling, and it's unreasonable to expect to battle for that every year, but it is what it is. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to do that, and you're going to have to try to reach that level every year. But it feels to me like he's throwing his hands up after 1-2. Forget about 1-3. At 1-2 after the Georgia Tech loss, he was like, what if we lay an egg this year, so what? Right. But I don't think we're going to. Where does that language even come from?
Why would you say 6-6? Why would you say, look, we're getting back to our process? You're telling me it's not working. This is where he has told me multiple times the house is on fire. And I'm like, why? right? And I go, are you doing that to punish the ADs or, not punish, to put pressure on them? But from my understanding, he's been given everything that he's asked for. And when you get paid and when that expectation, and also when you put yourself as the first guy that runs down the hill full speed, I'm looking at you, bro.
Right, bro.
You make it about you before, it's about you after. And it always is about him at Clemson.
And I really so to me.
Who do you hear from more, Ryan Day or Dabo?
Without Dabo, 1,000%, right? But for me, because to be fair, I'm tearing him down, but what would I really like to see from him?
I was going to say, where do you go next?
What would I have liked him to do instead is take the responsibility and be like, you know what? Damn right. 1-3. And he said this. He was like, not the way we wanted to start our year, but I can guarantee you, and this is like the classic Tim Tebow, right? You're never going to see a team work harder. You're never going to see somebody put themselves in the positions to be where they need to be. You're never going to see the response the way you're going to see that. I don't hear that from him. And so if I'm a Clemson player or I'm a Clemson assistant coach, I got issues, bro. Right.
Where's the
belief in who we are and what we're supposed to do? And without that, I don't see them. Do you see them turning it around this year?
No, I see him getting fired. I do. I think what's the Spurrier thing? Every 10 years, you need a new voice. I do think voices get stale. I do think it's sometimes out of the control of the coach.
He's been there since 2008, if I'm correct. We're way over.
17, right?
We're way over the
10 years. I think that's when he left Florida. It was like you shouldn't be anywhere longer than 10 years or whatever. And you see it so many. Saban was able to do it, but
Yeah, there's very few people that can have decades long tenures,
right? And it does get old. And so. It feels like it's coming to an end, and I never want to say that, but it does feel like it's coming to an end. And it's just, he feels like a guy who's just squirming. It does, and it just gives this uncomfortable feeling where I don't ever see Kirby act that way.
Right.
I don't.
You never saw Saban act that way.
Ever. Just so engraved to the process and belief of what they were going about. He looks like a guy who doesn't believe in his own process anymore. And that's where I think is scary from a leader is he's grasping for answers and he's letting you know he doesn't have them. And you can't be that rich and you can't get paid that much. I'm sorry.
So the edge, right, is not to not set unbelievably high standards for yourself all the time, but when you don't reach those standards, it's time for accountability and ownership and belief that you still can. It's not about pointing the finger and pointing at past success and trying to excuse it away. It's about doubling down on ownership, doubling down on accountability, and the belief that you can still get there. Thank you.
That's a great combo.
Thank you for joining us and finding your edge with us. Let us know in the comments about what you think about high standards and the standards that we hold for ourselves on a daily basis. We'll see you next time.